Hello friends, welcome back to Modern Homestead Alaska. I got a phone call from my sister yesterday. She is having a family emergency on her husband's side, and so my mom is going to her house to take care of her little boys. They're elementary school age boys. And so I had a conversation with Erin last night because my mom is my grandmother's caretaker in the Las Vegas, Boulder City, that sort of area. And my grandmother did not want to travel. She didn't feel up to it. My uncle, of course, helps out with my grandmother. However, he doesn't live with her. They have a dog. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. So after having a conversation with Erin last night, I just really felt compelled to go and help with my grandmother so that my mom can devote her attention to my sister's boys, so that my sister can devote her attention to her husband and his family. So family does what family does. So spare of the moment, at 10 o'clock last night, Erin booked me a flight to Las Vegas, and I leave tomorrow. So I have today to do figure out what's going on with food, get the laundry caught up, get the house in order, and not only that, Erin headed out of town. Go figure. So Erin's not here, I'm leaving, everything is a mess. Join me today, we'll see what we get done in order to just split, pack, and run. Here we go. I am starting with laundry, and then I'm gonna get in the shower, and I'll catch you back here. So as I go through and I'm editing this video and thought I'd have a little conversation with you of the things that I did and got done on this day, as well as we are going to make a fantastic soup at the end of the video, and I definitely hope that others will try that out. First and foremost, by the time you watch any of this, I will probably be back home, but that is okay. It's just a safety thing that I keep my location not public until after the fact. But I started my day with the laundry. I needed to get all of the towels done. I am anti-paper towels for some reason, so we just use tons of kitchen towels and napkins and all of those things, and I like to wash them on a bleach load. And so I got all of the towels and the laundry completely caught up because Erin is traveling as well, therefore he won't have a whole bunch to go on. Now you remember in my last video we were making chicken noodle soup, and when we did so, we left some bone broth to go on the wood cook stove, and I said I would check back in with you later on that as far as that goes. Well, here it is. The next day, I have now, instead of what the original plan was I was going to make a bunch of soups with this week. I now need to store it, and the best way for me to do that is either I could pop it in the freezer, of course, and that would work great if that's the option you have. But I have this countertop electric canner, and so I just decided I would pull batches off of the wood stove and fill up 5 quarts, sorry. 5 pints or quarts? What size am I doing here? Hold on. Get myself together here. I am doing pints. I do like to can broth in quarts as well, which is where my own brain fart came from, if you will. But I went ahead and my pressure can will hold 5. I really had no idea, and you'll see in the end how many of these I ended up doing. I had no idea that there was that amount of broth. So how to can it? Let's talk about that for just a minute. I am putting hot in the jars, so I'm going to put hot water in the canner, so that's something we should mention. But all that I do is use like a strainer to keep the fat or the bits or the bones or whatever from getting into the broth. And then I ladle into each one of the jars. It's 4 ladles based on the size of my ladle. And then I wipe the tops of the jars with a little bit of white vinegar. It is on the rag that I use. You can use a dry rag or some water, but we just want all of that fat off of the rim of the jars before we can it up. And then I put new lids on. The rings you can reuse. The funny part is when you buy a lot of jars, they come with new lids and rings, so I have an abundance of rings. However, if you switch to a company that maybe you can just buy the jars, that might be great. But a new lid, because we are going to pressure can this. It's a low acid food. Low acid foods have to be pressure canned. They cannot be water bath. Now I know that there's some science behind the water bathing as far as like the Amish and several others do it, but this is the practice I know. Therefore, I go with the pressure canner on the chicken broth. Things I'll use this chicken broth for are soup and stews that we're making this month, and that is fantastic. You could just drink it if you were doing like a bone broth diet. At the end of the day, there's so much good collagen and fat and all of those things in this broth because it has been going over 24 hours in and on the wood cook stove. And then that keeps it up to temperature and hot to where I'm not reheating the broth for each of the batches. And in fact, what you see me canning up here, jarring up here, is actually batch number 2. This is my second one for the day. I had showered up and was working on some stuff, and I threw one batch in, but you're watching me work on the second batch in this clip. And then they go in this countertop pressure canner here, and I process them. I've read so many different things, but I just do 25 minutes on the chicken broth, and you can go for as much as you want. So that's what I did. One thing I thought I would mention about this pressure canner is you start it out on vent and it counts it down itself. So it's monitoring when it has the right amount of pressure inside of the canner. And like I had said, I start out with hot, and so I top off the jars to the right water level with boiling hot water as well. So hot inside the jar, hot outside of the jar. You wouldn't want to put cold water in there. You would break your jars, and you wouldn't want to put cold jars in and then hot water. Same song and dance, you would break the jars. But the pressure canner, I just flip the dial over when it tells me to, and it goes for the full 25 minutes without any help from me. And then I let it come down naturally. You don't want to force it to let the pressure out. You want to let it come down naturally. So I moved on to knocking things over and doing some laundry out of the family room. And one of the big projects that I deal with, we're going to get to in just a second, but this is what I was talking about. You see here, this huge armload is all kitchen towels, and then I had just set on the table all of the napkins, and I don't know why I'm that way, but there's no waste, and I can bleach all of these things. So I just put away all of the towels and got all of the laundry done for the day. I think as this is kind of a hopeful, motivational video, if you will, kind of work alongside of me, cook alongside of me as we kind of go through our day. I know you're watching me do what seem like mundane or boring things, but in the reality of having a homestead or being a stay-at-home wife and mother and doing those different things, our days are actually full of mundane chores and practices and so on, and you get questioned a lot. Like, I think the world wonders what you did all day. I think maybe we just sat on the couch and waited for everyone to get home for the chaos and the hecticness, if you will, to begin. That's not actually the case. I motor around from the time I get up till the time that I go to bed, and there's a million things to do on a homestead. We make our life a little bit hard on ourselves because we wanted to have this house run much closer to an off-grid property than I think what most would set up a brand new house to do. So our only heat is wood, and that is quite a tedious job, if you will. Having this wood stove in the kitchen, not only does it produce lots of ash and dust and the different things, but we are constantly pulling wood in from outside, and then it is producing some sort of byproduct or waste, if you will, with the ash. And then the wood just shares. It drips and drops pieces and bits, and it's quite a dirty thing to actually have in the kitchen, and it makes me look back fondly on before we had the technology and the things that we have nowadays, what it must have been like for great-grandparents and so on to have these wood cook stoves and the messes that they make and the constant work it is to keep up. And I do think it's such a romantic idea, having the wood cook stove in the kitchen and being that center piece as you walk into the house. And it really does, I think it gives life. It can heat up our water, and if we were without power, the fire itself gives off light. We could melt snow or boil water or any of those different things, as well as it is my constant cooking surface. It is heating our homestead, and our homestead is so warm, even when it's negative 20 and 30 degrees. It is still so incredibly warm, and so it is giving life and health and all of those things. And so I'm so grateful that we made this choice. However, in making the choice of heating with wood only and a wood cook stove, we made for ourselves a great big chore. And now, of course, my family will have to do all these things while I'm gone for nearly a week, and I will come home and they will have done all of it. I do have the time and attention to get all these things done before I head out of town, and they're my daily, weekly chores. I stay at home by myself most days, and so these are the things I'm responsible for. Our jurisdictions, if you will, are different areas that this is what I do. I don't carry in any of the wood. Aaron and the boys bring in all the wood for me, and then I just keep the fire going and keep everything cleaned up in and around it. But I would definitely encourage, if you had the opportunity to have something like this on your homestead, it really is a precious thing. Those of you that are kind of new around here, you might be kind of wondering some of the things, but to my old friends that have been around for a while, we had gotten this vacuum together at Costco a little while back. It was recommended by the lady that is helping me keep up on things in the house after the accident, and it is working fantastic. And I said that I would give you guys a review and let you know how I thought and felt. What's amazing is the filters all just pop into the washing machine, and not only that, it breaks apart so easily that you can literally clean out each and every area of this vacuum, which I think is probably why some cleaners use it, because they need to sterilize the vacuum from house to house that they travel to. And so at this point, she says all of her clients bought this vacuum, and then she can either use yours, or she brings her own filters and so on, and then washes them, whatever the case is. But still, my point is, it is working out excellent. And when you have a German Shepherd Husky mix, we have a puppy. Tipper is technically a pit bull. So we have the 3 dogs. When you have a puppy, that thing is such a mess. Every opportunity he gets, he is dragging wood out. He is just, But we love our old blue, don't we? We just love him. So he spills water. So those big floppy ears get into the water. He steps on them because he is a Springer Spaniel. So they just lead with their nose. We've never had a dog that his nose is just dragging on the ground everywhere he goes. And so he is just my little disaster. So lots of sweeping and mopping and vacuuming having to go on a homestead. Not only that, our yard is gravel. If you live on a dirt road, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And here in Alaska, we didn't know what everyone was talking about when they were talking about an Alaska room, which would be very much like a mud room. We didn't know that we needed one of those, and we need one of those for sure, because all of the outdoors, from the cow chores, chicken chores, the dogs, the gravel, the wood, all of that is dragged right straight through this front door and onto the floor, and it is what it is. So a couple times a week I have to mop everything up, but certainly every day we have to sweep and vacuum in this house. And because we're just rolling along and you're spending time with me today, and I hope you're enjoying some time with me here at my home, I get questions or comments like how all of the furniture matches. Not only that, I never thought I would live in a house with so much black. It isn't the style option that I think that I had ever envisioned for myself. Now, I do love this house and the way that I have put together the style of it and the look of it and so on. But the couch has been amazing. It is so lightweight. You saw me like I'm just scooting furniture around with my leg. I don't have to do a bunch of bending and so on. But it is heavy duty as far as the construction of it goes. And all of the furniture in the house, except for Aaron's little gray chair, everything is secondhand, salvaged, used, passed down. Nothing is new. I didn't get any of this furniture from a furniture store. So when I get questions on that, I'm like, oh, Facebook Marketplace. The couch was pink and an awful brown color. And then the coffee table matched it. And so I got them and painted them. And then I had the cushions reupholstered and so on. And I have to keep it covered because I have turned into the worst dog mom as far as furniture goes, because the stinking dogs get on the couch. And I upholstered this in a really, really light gray, almost white upholstery. And now I have a puppy that sleeps on it with me. And Tipper just can't have the puppy be up there. And so Tipper gets on there. And Roberto, whether he gets on there or not, it doesn't matter. He sheds so stinking bad that there's just black hair everywhere. So that is that, but you see kind of some of my fall decorations going on. Oh, if you wonder about the red bucket that seems to move its way around in all of the clips, how many clips has it been in? We are having to fill water from inside. Everything is frozen outside, and so we fill 5-gallon buckets of water for the chickens and the cow, and we haul those out several times a day. We have to water everything. I can fill them in the basement. There are other ways, but it's just as easy for me to fill it in the kitchen sink as it is for me to go to the basement and haul it around the house and all of that fun jazz. I am going to leave a link to this soup recipe because I did get it off of Pinterest today. I was talking to my friend Crystal over at Flat Tire Farm, and she was talking about tortellini soup, and she makes her own tortellinis and so on. And I said, hey, I had been looking up some different tortellini soups because I can get these tortellinis either, at Three Bears or Costco or someplace like that. And I think it is a great addition to soups. So for today's souping with friends, I looked this one up, and if you are an Olive Garden fan, they have a soup that is chicken and gnocchi, and it is fantastic. It is mine and Caleb's favorite soup when we go out to eat. If we were to stop at Olive Garden, we would get it every time over the salad and so on. So this is kind of a play on that, although you could put gnocchis in it instead of the tortellini, but I thought this was a good idea. So we just start off with this heavy bottomed pot, which is a Dutch oven that I have had for many, many years. Aaron bought this for me when we lived in Arizona as a gift, and so I'm just going to saute some onion. I have some celery in the refrigerator that needs to get used up, and that is something you'll see throughout the end of the video. Is in order to leave town, I really do need to deal with some of the food because Aaron and the kids just really wouldn't know what to do once I'm gone. And what if they didn't get it 8, it would just go to waste. So anyway, so it does call, I think, for a red bell pepper, but I have a yellow one in the fridge, so we're just gonna use what we have in the house and not go out shopping. So I just diced up the onion. There's a little bit of oil in the bottom of the pan, and then I added the celery in, and they're all just starting to saute as I'm chopping, making this go a little bit quicker. And then I do the yellow bell pepper instead of the red. The red would have been pretty in there, of course. And then I let that go for several minutes, and I am going to season it with some garlic salt and some black pepper. Aaron grinds the black peppercorns up for me, and so I keep them in this little jar. And they're really robust if you fresh grind black pepper, but I don't like to do it for each individual dish, and so he makes me a whole little jar of it that I keep on the shelf. And then a while back at Azure, we had gotten this frozen carrots, and they're kind of stuck together, but I had gotten them to go and try freeze drying carrots, which I will do, but I needed a handful of carrots for the recipe, so I busted those out of the freezer, as well as a few cloves of fresh garlic. We're gonna put in the soup, so you just pop those out of the skin. I like to cut the little tail end off of it, or the root end, and it makes peeling them just so much simpler that way. But yeah, I've heard with some of those, like the thing that I use to crush the garlic, that you could leave the peel on, but I never do. And so I'm just curious if you know if you can use this thing that you see me using right now and just leave the peel on or not. But I just got this one at, like a King Soopers of some sort, just the grocery store, and it pops the skin that's left out. And so I really like this garlic crusher, and it's lasted me many years. I've had it for several years, and I think it works great. There's no issues with it. And so after I let the soup go, you can see the color of the vegetables here. So it went for several minutes. I am going to use that bone broth that we have had going, and I know by the ladles, but I believe the recipe, don't quote me, you'll have to look at it, I think it calls for 6 cups of chicken broth. And so I'm just going to use this homemade bone broth, or chicken broth if you will, off of the wood cook stove. I'm still trying to work through all of this broth before I leave town, because I can tell you, God bless them, I love my family, they will not use it. So if it were to just sit in the refrigerator, they wouldn't know what to do with it, and it would truly go to waste before I got back, and that to me is very unacceptable. And if you're curious about the light, you see how dark it has gotten. Believe it or not, it is not that late. We just have short days. It's November here in Alaska, and so Our days are very, very short, and now with the time change, they're even worse. So I let the pressure come down. Like I said, I never twist that back to vent because if I did, it could cause my jars to blow up, is what I'm told. Now, I've never tried it. I don't know if that's a wives' tale, it doesn't matter. But the 5 jars fit in there very tight, so the first one is always really hard for me to get out. And you can see how hot the jars still are, but it takes well over an hour or so for this pressure to come down to where I can just open the lid without having to vent the exhaust. So afterwards, I do vent it so you can close the lid, and then so we can also load the next set of jars into it. However, there you have it. 5 more jars of beautiful home canned, home raised, completely organic, all by me, chicken bone broth. I am always really proud of myself in those moments. So back to the soup. In the last video, you saw me clean the chicken off of the bones that we threw back into that pot. I'm using that same chicken, and I'm gonna go mostly with some white chicken breasts because this is not gonna cook for very long at all. We're not gonna overly dry out those chicken breasts, and Caleb and I, who are gonna be the main 2 people eating the soup that night, I keep mentioning it, but Aaron's out of town. Wyatt is having to deal with weight because he is headed back to wrestling. And then Cody is working a night shift, so she's not at home either. And so I was very blessed on this night that my little Caleb came by on his way home from work before he headed off to the cabin, and him and I had dinner on this night, just the 2 of us. But like I said, this is a take on his absolute favorite soup of all time, so he was really excited when I told him what I was making. So the chicken went in, and it goes for maybe 5 minutes. I might have done some of these things out of order, so like I said, the recipe's in the description box, so follow that. And then the tortellinis go in. We happen to have some sort of like chicken and herb flavored tortellini that is perfect. And then when Wyatt was getting stuff for wrestling, he grabbed me this bag of spinach. I do have in the freezer a bunch of kale and things that I had home canned, and I probably should have used that here. That would have been perfect. But I do try and stick a little bit to the recipe, and so I wanted to see like what this spinach would do as you kind of put it in there for future reference, if you will. But I probably should have just thrown some kale instead of buying a bag of spinach. This was part of the inspiration for the soup. I had this little thing of heavy cream in the fridge. I had bought it for a recipe over the weekend, thinking that when I had made the banana puddings that I was going to put whipped cream on them. I did not. And so I had this brand new jar or little carton, if you will, of heavy cream, and the recipe called for that amount of heavy cream. And so that was just another thing I could pop out of the fridge and get taken care of that Aaron didn't have to concern himself with while I'm gone. And then I, of course, have a cheese fridge. And I say that not in such a facetious manner. I, of course, have lots and lots of cheese. So it calls for Parmesan. I believe this is like a Pecorino or some other kind of cheese, but it is going to be just fine. It's a hard aged cheese that is going to be great in the soup. So you put lots of it inside of the soup, and then you top the bowls. You see me making this bread. I had used that as well at family Sunday dinner. We had cut up the bread. It didn't all get ate, and so all I do is just butter it and then heat it up this way, and it makes a beautiful toast. So there we have it. Beautiful, beautiful soup, dinner with Caleb, a day full. I will continue this video on because tomorrow in real world, Aaron had a fantastic thing that he had to deal with. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video and the format, just spending some time and you were inspired. If you are making videos or you enjoy souping with friends, make sure you hit that hashtag in sharing your videos. And thank you for joining me. Be blessed, and I will catch you in the next video.